We welcome into the program now Falcons General Manager Thomas Dimitroff, who has taken a few minutes to join us. Good morning.
Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Well, we're doing awesome. It's Dwight Freeney Day.
Dwight Freeney Day. Excited about that.
Now, tell me about how that came about.
You know, we had been talking through the spring, and we've been really focused, as we all know, about where we are with our pass rush. You know, we know about pass rush in the world and how important it is, and we feel like we're continuing to add the pieces here for a really good rotation. And our eyes were really set on a veteran guy who we thought could come in and help contribute and help, not necessarily mentor and teach. That's not the reason that we brought him in. We brought him in here to ramp up and continue to ramp up where we are as a pass rusher and as a pass rushing team. So that's where we are.
When you were looking at Dwight Freeney and you were looking at bringing him in, because to be totally honest, Thomas, when I looked at the last couple of practices, it looked like the defense was doing really, really well as far as getting to the quarterback. What do you see him potentially bringing to the table as one of the new Falcons pass rushers?
Well, I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be a really good guy that's going to help, create another area on the field as a pass rusher, another option to get upfield. As we all know, and anyone who knows anything about pass rush, you have to have more than one unit getting upfield, right? We've seen it time and time again, and that's what we're thinking about. Again, we're a big a team that's very focused on the rotation. That is Dan Quinn's way. And we continue to feel that we continue to add another piece there with, Vic on the other side and Brooks Reed and Claiborne. So that's what it is. It's about getting more people in here.
Speaking of like having a rotation, one of the young guys that I was looking at, and I apologize if I mess up this young man's name because he just got here from London, Efe Adaba.
Yes.
He's a young man that I look like he has a little bit of skill. He's just a little raw with the game. What have you seen from him so far?
Well, he's a really nice-looking athlete going upfield, and he's a really good-looking physical specimen. I mean, we like how he's hanging. He's low. He's got long arms to get upfield. We like how his athleticism is.
Just not to cut you off, but people out there that listen to the radio, like Thomas right now is really into what he's doing right now. If you could just see the way that his body's moving and talking about these pass rushers, he is really excited about this team this year. I apologize for cutting you off. Go right ahead.
That's where I am. Just watching him, we were excited about bringing him in. Right, he's a guy that doesn't have a ton of experience. He was with the Cowboys at one time. He wasn't a high school guy. He's from the UK. Right, he's got some really interesting background for him. When you bring a guy like that in and you watch him through the bags and you watch him in the drills and you project to how he's going to fit in and compare to what we have. We are interested in him. One of the things I think we're going to be more and more focused on is always continuing to look at that pass rush group. And we've said this time and again over the years. We are looking to always continue to upgrade our depth, and that's a big thing. So you bring a guy like this in and continue to ramp up competition for all the other guys that are maybe on the other end of the roster working to get in.
Thomas Dimitroff, General Manager of the Atlanta Falcons, joining John and Hugh live on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. I know Hugh's chomping at the bit to talk to you about the draft class, about the rookies, and how impressed we've been so far. But I want to go over here for a second because we spent so much time talking about these rookies. I wanted to ask you, Thomas, about some of the other newcomers. When you saw Courtney Upshaw, when you saw Derek Shelby, what was your game plan? Did you hit everything you wanted to hit in this offseason in terms of completing this team?
So we were really, again, focused on areas of need, of course, and when we went out in free agency and then in the draft, we knew specifically, and I want to stress this is a very well thought out group as far as coaching and scouting and talking together and discussing where the true needs were, where we were going to find them, whether it was free agency or the draft. That was a big focus for us. We thought we kicked off a really strong approach in our free agency. We took a direct approach on some of the need positions, of course, with where we were with our center and where we were with our receiver. Inside pass rush, same thing. The rotation thing. Shelby's a very strong guy who can push upfield. He also has the ability to make himself skinny where appropriate and get upfield because we think that he has disruptability for us. He's another guy that's going to add to the really, really strong rotation for us, and that was important for us. As far as Courtney Upshaw, same thing. Guys who have experience, guys who know what it is to finish figuratively and literally speaking. I think when you have a veteran guy and he knows what it is to make that extra foot drive towards the quarterback and not come up and think, wow, I got around two people to almost get there and I just got my hand close, so that's good enough. That's not good enough for us, obviously, and that's not Dan Quinn's approach. So we were very focused on getting the type of people in that we thought could continue to finish the exercise, so to speak.
Thomas, I got to admit, I only been around you a few times, but I can see right now that you're really, really excited about this football season. How good can this, in your eyes, can this Atlanta Falcons football team be?
I think I've been really, really impressed out there with the defense and again, the evolution of the defense since Dan has been here. I think he knows exactly what he wants and they need for the scheme. We've said this time and again. He's able to give us that information as management and the scouting department and know exactly the nuances, for the most part, of the nuances of the defense. And that's a big thing. We talk all the time in our circles in the league, whether GMs and head coaches, and we always talk about the importance of getting as much information from the coaching staff as possible. And, again, Dan knows his defense inside out. As well, he knows pass rush. I know that wasn't easy for us to walk away as a 32nd pass rush team last year. We had a really, really big focus on where we were. Contrary to what was reported out there that we weren't doing anything about it, we were doing things at many levels with our pass rush and how we were approaching things as per acquiring and also coaching on the field. You
know what, speaking of pass rush and the way that with the CBA and the way that everybody practices now, you know, with the limited practices and limited padded practices, how hard has it been for you to evaluate some of these young players, especially when you don't have that, they don't get that many reps, especially at that pass rush position? How hard has it been for you to evaluate these players when you're trying to figure out who can pass rush and who can't pass rush?
Well, I mean, this has been an ongoing discussion. It can't get lost in the commentary either, Hugh. When rules have changed as they had in 11, on both fronts, I'm a big believer in that. We cannot develop these players the same way we did pre-11. You know that. You understand that. The physicality, the rules, they're very, very different. And so you have to find creative ways within the lines of the rules, of course, to make sure you're coaching these guys. We've been very, very focused on developing these guys after practice. If you were around here during the spring, you know, it's a little bit different in training camp because there's so much going on. But our coaching staff is really direct at pulling these guys aside after practice and spending the extra 20 minutes, again, within the confines of the rules and the time, and really, really focus. But again, you're not able to hit the same way that you used to be able to hit, and let's call it the way it is. When you're in the trenches and you're not able to be as physical, there are certain projections you have to make as far as who you're going to keep and who you're going to work with, and that takes a lot of extra effort and a lot of extra time, and I think we're dialed in. I think Dan is one of the best coaches I've ever been around who believes in development.
It is day 7 of Falcons training camp, broadcasting live from Flowery Branch with John and Hugh on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game with Falcons general manager Thomas Dimitroff. Thomas, overnight there was a story that broke on national media involving a young player named Torrey Green, and some allegations against him. Does the team like to say anything in regard to that?
No, you know, we take any reports about our players very, very seriously, and with regard to the alleged or the allegations, I mean, until we find out more information, we will not make any other comments.
All right, so we move along back into the team here. And as we move into the team, I do want to go back to those rookies that we were talking about here. Have they exceeded what – now, granted, it's only 1 week of practice. You have minicamp, but 1 week of practice here. Still, they have jumped off the chart to all of us. Neal and Campbell and Jones, and they're making play. And even Matt Ryan had mentioned, man, these guys can fly. I mean, was this what you anticipated from this group? Yeah,
this is a really interesting offensive group, and the firepower there. I think these guys can run. These guys can catch. Again, we're – back to what Hugh was saying, there's an excitement about it. I want to contain it because I'm an upbeat, positive person with the guys that we have here. This has the potential of being a very, very good group, and for Matt, I'm sure he's excited about having these guys to spin the ball to.
You know, with the first preseason game coming up, you always want to look at stuff and you want to take it in spurts and just kind of grade it in like in certain levels. What are some of the things that you're looking for from these young players that you just drafted in that first preseason game?
I think what we really want to do is see how they rise to the occasion when they're amid the fire, so to speak. And I think that's a big thing. See how truly mature and how they're evolving even over the last couple months being around in the spring, right? We can sit there and say, wow, we're really impressed with A, B, and C or this player or that player, until they get into the mix, until they're playing against players when you're not holding back and you're not just thudding on the field, that you're actually coming through and finishing. That's when we get start to get a good idea of who they are. But again, I'm a big believer as well. You have guys on our team, or we have guys on our team that we're looking to see how they truly perform. Great thing about Dan Quinn is he's going to put some of those younger guys in a spot where they're going to compete against some of the upper tier guys, and not just bury them back with the fours, the fourth line for another team. If you're seriously thinking about a player that may be vying for that starting spot, you better be very particular about how you're aligning him in the preseason games.
One of the things that we know here, General Manager Thomas Dimitroff joining us live on 92.9 The Game, is that you and Dan had sat down and wanted to create a lot of competition at certain positions. Boy, are we seeing that in camp. The competition at running back between Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman. The competition between, I don't know how many guys there are at linebacker, 10, 11, 12. I mean, the competition has really ramped up, and you can see it within the individual performances of the guys.
Oh, I mean, I can't stress that enough. Watching Dan and his approach to competition, it is so authentic, and this team believes it through and 100%. Again, you know, in the past we had some issues with the finish. The finish was an issue for us, and Dan, you know, with his approach, which is authentic about competition, it's about pushing these guys to finish and be proud of what they're doing and be proud of their competition. And all those groupings that you're talking about and many, many more on the field, it is about Dan and his coaching staff, and they're very competitive. You should see them, the way that they approach things. It is a fiery, upbeat coaching staff led by Dan, of course, and these players feed off of that.
You know, Thomas, I know you remember that old saying that they used to have, look like Tarzan, play like Jane.
Sure.
You've been around a lot of football. Talk about that a little bit. How many guys have you seen in your time in this game that have been like that look great? They're great specimens in practice, but when they actually get in the game, they never show up.
Yeah, that's a tough thing, and hopefully you want to be able to vet that during your process of acquiring, right, talking to college people and whoever it is. But in the end, you really don't know until, again, everything is flying around and they're in the midst of everything. But I will say it happens. Sometimes people out there, and you've seen it across the board, they may take that chance thinking, okay, I'm going to be able to ramp this guy up to the good or the very good level of competitiveness and toughness. But too often they are who they are, and we give them a chance and see how it all works out.
Falcons General Manager Thomas Dimitroff, I'm excited. Of course, 40 years of watching this team.
Thomas, you about to lead this guy. You got the guy all hype. Now I got to work with him for a couple more hours. It's going to be ridiculous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate
General Manager Thomas Dimitroff live here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game with John and Hugh here on the morning show.